But that belief is fragile because it depends on others to hold it up. The moment people stop clapping, you start questioning your value again. When your worth is based on validation, you're constantly in performance mode. You become addicted to being seen, noticed, and praised. Every achievement is quickly followed by the fear of becoming irrelevant. You start asking questions like, did I do enough? Or do they still approve of me? You feel pressure to stay impressive, to stay liked. But the danger is, in this pursuit, you lose yourself. You start shaping your actions, your voice, even your identity, around what gets the most attention or approval. Validation isn't a bad thing. It feels good to be appreciated. But when your entire identity depends on it, it becomes a trap. You stop trusting your own instincts. You dismiss your feelings and intuition just to fit in or be accepted. You hand over your self-esteem to people who don't even know your full story. And that's a dangerous place to live. Waiting for someone else to decide if you're enough. Internal self-worth is different. It's quieter, but stronger. It doesn't scream for attention. It doesn't rise and fall based on praise or criticism. It says, I matter, even when no one sees me. I'm enough, even when no one says it. That kind of worth comes from knowing who you are, what you stand for, and what you're willing to walk away from. It's built in solitude, not in spotlights. It's nurtured through self-respect, through setting boundaries, and through honoring your truth. Building internal self-worth means letting go of the need to prove yourself. It means being okay with not being everyone's favorite. It means valuing your voice even when it shakes, your path even when it's unpopular. It's the freedom to grow, fail, rise, and still believe you are worthy at every stage. You are not someone's opinion. You are not a performance of people's expectations. You are whole as you are. The moment you stop chasing validation and start standing in your truth, that's when you begin to live with real power. Because no one can take away a worth that wasn't given to you by them in the first place. We often grow up believing that perfection is the ultimate goal. We're taught to avoid mistakes, hide our flaws, and present the most polished version of ourselves to the world. Somewhere along the way, we begin to equate perfection with worthiness. We think that if we can just be perfect enough, perfectly successful, perfectly kind, perfectly strong, then we'll finally be accepted, respected, and loved. But what we don't realize is that in the pursuit of perfection, we often lose the very thing that makes us human, our authenticity. Authenticity means showing up as who you truly are, not who you think you're supposed to be. It means allowing yourself to be seen fully, your strengths, your scars, your truth. It takes far more courage to be real than it does to be perfect. Perfection may impress people, but authenticity connects people. While perfection creates pressure, authenticity creates space. Space for growth, for vulnerability, for trust. When you chase perfection, you begin to filter everything you do. You second-guess your words, you suppress your emotions, and you constantly measure yourself against unrealistic standards. And even when you do everything right, you still feel empty, because deep down, you know it's not really you that people are clapping for. It's the image you created. That disconnect begins to erode your peace. But when you choose to be authentic, you take back your power. You stop performing and start living. You give yourself permission to feel, to fail, and to learn out loud. You start having real conversations instead of polished performances. And what you'll find is that people are more drawn to your realness than your perfection. Because we don't bond over how flawless someone seems. We bond over the truth we recognize in each other. Authenticity is where growth begins. When you can admit you don't have it all figured out, you open yourself up to learning. When you stop pretending you're okay, you make room for healing. When you show up in your rawest form, you give others the courage to do the same. That is powerful. The world is already filled with people trying to be perfect. What it needs more of are people brave enough to be real. People who can say, this is me. I have cracks, but I'm not broken. I'm growing, but I'm not hiding. That kind of honesty is magnetic. It's rare. And it's what inspires real change in ourselves and in others. Perfection is a moving target, but authenticity is a choice. A powerful daily choice to embrace your truth instead of escaping it. And when you make that choice, you'll find something deeper than approval. You'll find peace. Boundaries are not about building walls to keep people out. They're about creating space to protect your peace, your time, and your emotional well-being. They are an expression of self-respect, a signal to the world that you know your worth and you are willing to defend it. When you set boundaries, you are not being rude, difficult, or selfish. You are simply making it clear that you value yourself enough to decide what is acceptable and what is not. People who truly value themselves don't tolerate disrespect, manipulation, or emotional neglect. They don't say yes, just to keep the peace if it means disturbing their own. They understand that every time they allow someone to cross a line without consequence, they are sending a silent message. My needs don't matter. But when you set boundaries, you send a very different message. I matter too. Your boundaries are a mirror of your self-worth. The more you believe in your value, the more courage you'll have to walk away from situations that dishonor it. And it doesn't always have to be loud or dramatic. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is quietly choose peace over chaos, distance over drama, and self-respect over people-pleasing. Setting boundaries also teaches others how to treat you. If you allow constant interruptions, people will keep disrespecting your time. If you accept being spoken to with sarcasm or aggression, people will believe it's okay. But when you calmly and clearly assert your limits, people begin to understand that there is a line, and that line is built on self-respect, not pride. Many people struggle with boundaries because they fear rejection. They think saying a no will make them unloved or unwanted. But the reality is, the people who love you will respect your boundaries. And the people who leave because of them were never really for you. As boundaries don't push the right people away, they filter the wrong ones out. Having boundaries doesn't mean you never compromise or adjust. It means you don't abandon yourself to accommodate others. It means you learn to pause before responding, reflect before agreeing, and evaluate whether something aligns with your values. It's not about control, it's about alignment. There is strength in being kind and firm. There is power in walking away from what doesn't serve your growth. When you protect your energy, your time, your values, and your peace, you're not being selfish, you're being wise. And that wisdom starts from within, rooted in the belief that you are worthy of love, respect, and dignity. Not just from others, but from yourself first. Boundaries are not just tools for relationships. They are acts of self-love. They are daily reminders to yourself and the world that you are not available for anything that dishonors your spirit. When you believe in your value, you no longer beg for respect. You expect it, and you live like it. We often wait to celebrate ourselves until we've reached the finish line, until the goal is complete, the body is perfect, the success is undeniable. But the truth is, real growth isn't just found in results. It's found in progress. It's found in progress. Every small step forward, every quiet improvement, every moment you choose to try again instead of give up, that's growth, and it deserves to be acknowledged. Because progress is proof that you're moving. It's proof that you're becoming. Too often, we minimize our efforts because they don't look big enough to be celebrated. We think if the world doesn't notice, it doesn't matter. But growth is rarely loud. It's built in silence, through the tiny decisions no one sees. It's built in the early mornings when you show up tired. In the conversations where you stay calm when you used to explode. In the times you keep going, even though doubt whispers that it's not worth it. That progress is sacred. It is the foundation of transformation. When you begin to celebrate progress, you shift your mindset from pressure to purpose. You stop being obsessed with perfection and start appreciating movement. You begin to recognize that you're not the same person you were a month ago, or even a week ago. You may not be where you want to be yet, but you're not where you used to be either. That deserves honor, not criticism. Acknowledging progress builds confidence. Every time you pause to recognize your own effort, you remind yourself that you are capable. You reinforce the truth that change is happening, even if it's slow, even if it's invisible to others. Celebrating progress isn't about being complacent. It's about fueling your journey. It gives you the energy to keep going, the motivation to push forward, and the belief that you're on the right path. So many people quit not because they lack ability, but because they can't see their own growth. They're too focused on what's missing to notice what's improving. But the small wins matter, the days you show up, the habits you're building, the thoughts you've challenged, the boundaries you've honored. That's progress. And progress is not a sign that you might grow, it's evidence that you already are. You don't need to wait for the finish line to be proud of yourself. You don't need a big announcement or a dramatic breakthrough. Sometimes the quiet victories are the most meaningful. the ones no one claps for but you. Tessa, because you know what it took to get here. You know the inner battles you fought, the tears you wiped, the fear you overcame. Growth doesn't demand that you be perfect. It asks that you stay in motion. And when you learn to celebrate that motion, you start to experience joy in the journey, not just the destination. That's where real transformation happens, not just when you arrive, but every single time you choose to move forward. From the moment we are born, the world starts telling us who we are. Parents, teachers, society, culture, they all hand us labels. Some are positive, some are limiting. And over time, we begin to wear these labels like skin. We start believing that our worth is tied to how others see us. If they see strength, we feel strong. If they see failure, we feel like a failure. We feel like a failure. But your identity is not a collection of other people's opinions. It is not something to be handed to you. It is something to be discovered, built, and owned by you alone. When you allow others to define your identity, you give them power they were never meant to have. You start walking through life trying to meet their expectations instead of discovering your own truth. You live to impress, to fit in, to avoid rejection. You play roles instead of living reality. And in that process, you drift further and further away from your authentic self. You start asking, who do they want me to be? Instead of, who am I really? People will always have opinions. Some will try to box you in because it makes them comfortable. Others will define you based on one mistake, one chapter, one version of you that no longer exists. But you are not required to accept their definition. You are allowed to grow. You are allowed to evolve. You are allowed to be more than their limited perception of you. The moment you stop letting others define you is the moment you begin to live freely. You stop needing to explain yourself. You stop shrinking to make others comfortable. You stop editing your personality to earn love. Instead, you start standing in your truth even if it makes others uncomfortable. You choose honesty over approval. And that choice creates power. Woody? Your identity should come from within, from your values, your passions, your choices, and your voice. It's not about what others call you. It's about what you answer to. It's about knowing your story, your pain, your growth, and allowing that to shape who you are becoming. It takes courage to be yourself in a world that constantly tries to mold you into something else. But that courage is what sets you free. Because once you stop needing others to define you, you stop needing them to validate you. You find peace in knowing that who you are is enough even when misunderstood, even when underestimated. Let them say what they want. Let them believe what they choose. Their perception is not your truth. Your identity is yours. Guard it, honor it, own it. You are not here to live a version of life that someone else approves of. You are here to live the truth that only you can write. The way you speak to yourself shapes the way you experience the world. Your internal dialogue becomes your emotional environment, and over time, it builds or breaks the foundation of your confidence, resilience, and self-worth. Kind self-talk isn't about ignoring flaws or pretending everything is perfect. It's about treating yourself with the same compassion, patience, and understanding that you would offer to someone you love. It's recognizing that your mistakes don't make you unworthy and your struggles don't define your identity. Many people live with a harsh inner critic, an unforgiving voice that constantly points out failures, doubts every effort, and questions every decision. Over time, that voice becomes normal. It becomes background noise. But what's dangerous is that we begin to believe it. We start assuming we're not enough, not capable, not deserving of joy or success. That internal narrative becomes a filter, affecting how we view opportunities, how we respond to challenges, and how we relate to others. Kind self-talk disrupts that cycle. It steps in like a steady friend who reminds you of your value when your own mind tries to forget. It says, you're doing your best, even when things aren't perfect. It reminds you it's okay to fail. It doesn't make you a failure. This isn't weakness. This isn't weakness. It's strength, because it takes real courage to be gentle with yourself in a world that constantly pushes for more, better, faster. Inner strength doesn't come from pretending to be tough all the time. It comes from giving yourself space to be human. When you fall, kind self-talk encourages you to stand up, not shame yourself for stumbling. When you're afraid, it comforts instead of criticizes. When you feel lost, it doesn't demand answers. It offers presence. That is how self-trust is built. That is how resilience is born, not from perfection, but from unconditional self-acceptance. This kind of inner dialogue is especially vital during seasons of struggle. It's easy to be kind to yourself when everything is going well. But when things fall apart, when you mess up, or when life feels overwhelming, that's when self-compassion becomes a lifeline. In those moments, what you say to yourself matters more than what anyone else says to you. Because the world can encourage you, but if your own voice is tearing you down, it's hard to rise. Changing the way you speak to yourself takes practice. It requires awareness and intention. You have to notice the critical thoughts, pause, and replace them with truth. Not fake positivity, but grounded kindness. Remind yourself that growth takes time, that worth isn't earned by doing more, and that you are allowed to be both a masterpiece and a work in progress at the same time. Kind self-talk creates a safe space within you, a home you can return to when the world feels too loud. And that inner safety, that consistent voice of compassion, is what forms the foundation of unshakable inner strength. You don't have to wait for the world to recognize your value before you start living like you matter. Your self-worth isn't given, it's remembered. It's built day by day through the choices you make to show up, speak truth, set boundaries, and treat yourself with kindness. And you are not defined by your past, your mistakes, or anyone else's opinions. You are defined by the courage to become who you truly are. So stop chasing approval, stop shrinking to fit, and start walking in the quiet, confident power of someone who finally knows their worth and refuses to forget it again.